Okay, so this is a new design that I'm working on for a waste oil burner. Basically, the purpose of this machine is to burn tree stumps out of the ground. I've changed designs because I used to run this device over here, but I feel like a lot of my flame was wasted and making a huge fireball inside this combustion chamber. So it's been chopped up because I wanted to examine what was going on inside of there. Come to find out, quite a bit of filth builds up inside of these things. Just a thought on that subject. But anyway, what we've got here is a blower out of a vacuum cleaner that I scored for 20 bucks. Just a small wet vac that you get from Menards. So it's a pretty good deal for that blower. The blower had to be significantly modified to function as a blower because it actually had intake ports here, or I believe those were discharge ports, I'm sorry. And it had no intake really. This is made for a gasifier I'm building, so that's why it's got all this oddball stuff on it. But anyway, what I'm going to have to do is build a heat shield for this thing because the body itself will emanate infrared rays that could possibly heat my motor up a little bit more than I'm wanting to happen. So we're going to run it without the heat shield at first and see if it'll be okay. I'm hoping that it will, since it has its own forced air blower. Basically what we have here is a cyclone combustion configuration, and inside of there is a oil vaporization coil that you can see in operation on another video that I have. I ran this device without this end cap on it. The pump that I'll be using is a gear pump off of a Swiffer wet jet. This pump's capable of providing 25 psi's at 12 volts. I'll be running that off of this rheostat here, and that transformer connected to that red cord there. The second rheostat will be running the blower. Forgive me, that is not a rheostat, that is a triac. These are both triac speed controllers for routers. They do not use a rheostat. At the end of this here, I have a filter so that I don't have to bother filtering the waste oil. I don't have much oil. I've got about 8 quarts of oil, waste oil, and we're gonna see how this thing operates. I'm gonna try and log as much data as I can, time how long it'll run on the 4 quarts, and hopefully, the only problem that I foresee is my vaporization coil will most likely varnish up and clog. So I may end up having to cut this thing open and simply have a single rod just spraying oil into there, and hopefully the heat of the body itself will vaporize the oil, which is probably the concept I should have went with from the get-go. It was kind of a dumb idea of me to do that, so this thing may fail before the 8 quarts is up even. I'm not sure. Definitely too much oil in there. Uh-oh. Flame out. So this is the before shot of the stump that I'm going to be removing with this machine. And one of the changes I had to make was to add this bung hole. You can go ahead and have a laugh at that, but that's what they would call that, unfortunately. I think the latter came before the former, but so the reason I had to add this was that's the only way I could get this thing lit. Preheating the canister with a torch by just blasting the flame here did not work. Adding gas tended to make for some pretty exciting explosions that I don't care to enjoy anymore, and for the most part this seems to work pretty well, though it does cause some strange harmonic phenomenons that you'll observe here in a minute. This is the new pump that I'm going to be working with. I'm not exactly sure what type of pump this is. It's not exactly a positive displacement pump. It has a star wheel impeller with cylindrical nodules on the end of each star blade, and it's a very similar pump to that you would see inside of a boat motor. I'll have to look online and see what this type of pump is actually called, but it's sort of a positive displacement pump, but not really, because the impeller is rubber, and on the bottom side, or on the top here, the impeller is squished to a point where the volume is far less than the volume around the rest of the periphery. So the fluid comes in here, travels around the star wheel, and at the top here the star wheel is smashed. It's probably not a very durable pump. I don't know how long an impeller would last under those conditions, but it is a rubber impeller, and it does seem to supply enough pressure to run this. The gear pump that I had was just not suitable for pumping oil. It was drawing 4 amps at the flow rate that I needed, and it's probably about a 1 amp motor, so it was smoking and burning up, and connecting the Dremel motor tool up to it did not help things at all. I was burning up my Dremel at the speeds that I needed to run the flow rate I needed. So there was kind of a situation there that was just not going to yield. So there you have it. vaporization coil is clogging up just as I presumed it would. I have to function at full power right now, and before when I did that, the flames would blast out of there like a rocket. Also, fluid would actually drip out of the nozzle. We're not really getting that now, so I believe I'm going to have to chop that open, remove the vaporization coil, and just have a simple injection